Anyway, it just feels like, thank you. Felt like maybe a nice way to start the morning for an hour. It's lovely to spend an hour with you. Today, I wanted to maybe tell a little bit about kind of what I do and maybe some of my background and what I'm thinking about now, but I would like to quickly just turn it over to you, and I'm open to any and all questions. There's no question too simple or too complicated. If this became a conversation, that would be a dream. Yes, go ahead. Thank you. Hmm. I was just thinking about that this morning. Actually, I'm writing a piece. Well, it's my first opera, actually, and I was putting in these like 2 bars of silence, and I was like, oh, this is an instance of silence as humor. It's like a space for humor. It can be a space for reflection, but it's also there's so much that happens in. I guess the way to answer that is I think of music a lot as a kind of conversation, sometimes existing in the pace of conversation or somewhere like language in the way that we speak to each other. I really enjoy music that has that kind of pacing and quality and form. And, when you're speaking to someone, whether you know them really well or they're someone you've just met, there's those pauses in the conversation, which is sometimes where all the information or the nuance can be. And as someone once told me, he said, all the best stuff is in the parentheticals. All the best stuff in life is in those little spaces, the things you say in between, not the thing you mean to say, but the thing that happened on the side. And I think silence kind of works like that. I think it's incredibly beautiful sound, and it's an edge of sound that feels really, can be incredibly moving, can also be incredibly uncomfortable, can be funny. Very important to me sometimes for setting myself up for hearing something that is maybe busier, more challenging, or thicker. It's part of that, balance between order and chaos. I will say my favorite use of silence. There's a Mozart sonata, violin sonata K304 in E minor in the second movement. In this middle of the second movement, there's this like bar and a half of silence that is like the most exquisite little moment. I always think of that. It's like the simplest thing can be the most powerful. Yeah. Yeah.
What instruments do you play? And does that have any influence on what instruments you choose to write for and how you write for them?
Great question. It does have. I think I'm supposed to say, no, I write for, anything, and a composer should be able to write for everything. But no, I actually tend to really love writing for strings. I started as a violinist, and now I play a bit of viola too. And I also play piano. I don't perform as a pianist. It makes me super nervous. But I use the piano a lot when I'm writing. And I play mandolin. I'm a bad guitarist. I sing quite a bit. And I'll try anything. But I do love writing for things that I know kind of intimately because it feels like a natural extension of my body. So strings and voices especially. And of course I challenge myself always to write for things that I don't know very well. If I'm writing for orchestra, I'm writing for an oboe. I've never touched an oboe before. But I have a general sense of kind of melody and body and feel and breath as a singer that I think informs that. But, I always also encourage, younger musicians who, if you haven't written music before, but you play an instrument, start there. Start with your own instrument. I think that's great. I think it's a great way to kind of use your intuition, find your habits, figure out what it is that you love and you don't love, and that's a good jumping off place. Other people might want to jump off by writing for something that they don't know. That's also a great way to kind of put your brain into another shape. But yeah. Hmm. I'm smiling under here because it's such a great question, and every time someone asks, I'm like, I have to figure it out. Like what? Um, it's a little bit different for every piece, but I do tend to start at the keyboard. Two things. Do start at the keyboard in some way. I travel with the keyboard just to find. I love harmony. It's just like the thing that punches me in the gut and moves me, and I love it. Not everyone does, and that's okay. There are many different kinds of music, but that's the thing that kind of drives me. So I'll usually find chords that I'm just really compelled by, and kind of find a shape of them and little anchors for the piece. Something like, oh, I would really love for that to happen 5 minutes in. But there's also another part of it, which is I'll think about a piece for a long time before even really thinking about any of the notes or music or any of that part. Just what it means, the shape of it, who it's for, when it will be done, kind of who will be in the room, what will be what is the kind of sentiment or vibe or shape that I want to live with for a little while, and what do I want to, offer up? Do I want something that is soft or hard or has these huge contrasts? Or sometimes it's about something, like it'll be about, like that piece was really about this tree, and I didn't realize I was going to write a piece about a tree until I saw it, and then was kind of designing. So what are the if I wanted to have something in several different parts, what are the different aspects of this tree that are exciting to me? And then I start to kind of make textures. It feels like I sort of make a painting for a piece in my mind before I actually start it. And then when is it finished? It's usually finished when it's due, but it's also there's a process that happens like 2 days before I really want to turn it over, where it's like the whole map. The map is there. The piece is like somewhat there, but it's not really strong yet. But all the anchors are there. And then I go in and say, like, it's like going back through and being able to edit a conversation. Like if you had a really important conversation, you're like, I just wish I had said that just a little bit differently. Then it's just sort of like fine-tuning all the little transitions or the pauses, like the silences and all the spaces in between. That's the kind of really exciting last part. But every piece is different. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think I wanted to write music when I was little, and then in college a bit, but I wasn't quite sure what music was supposed to, where I fit in and what was supposed to be written, and I had a lot of insecurities about it for a while. I think I was in college, I was a violinist, and I had a lot of ideas in my head, and I would write music kind of, in my dorm room and then share it with one person. And then I started playing for dance classes, actually, as a pianist and violinist for modern dance and ballet classes. And I realized I was making all this music for them. I was like improvising. I thought, well, I was sort of just generating a lot of music really quickly and learning what I liked and kind of what they responded to. And I thought, I really want to keep doing this. And then I joined a group called Roomful of Teeth when it was just started as a workshop. Like let's try some things, let's explore these ideas, and it wasn't really even a group yet. And the director said, would you like to, anyone who wants to try something, go ahead. And so I thought, okay, I really want to, what if this sound happened? Like I was just trying to imagine something I hadn't heard, and then sort of a lot of people in the rooms like, let's try this. And I loved that process so much that I just started writing a little bit more. But I never really planned to like, I want to be a composer. It was like, these are the people around me. I want to make something with them and for them, and it's just a small concert at the end of the week or at the end of the month. Let me make something small. And I started really small. And I think it was a really safe place to start growing. So I really encourage all of you just to embrace the, like, if there's a possibility of doing something small, that's actually the best, because you can do something that you're just trying out, and it's a safe place, and then you learn along the way. Mhm. Oh yeah. Mm. Thank you. Um, oh gosh, I'm trying to think. Well, with to the side, which is this is the words in the opening of Partita Allemande, who was really, for that I was thinking of, there's an artist named Saul Lewitt who does all these wall drawings and paintings, and he uses lots of text directions to make the painting. So I was like, okay, how will this text, which is like from the 78th point to the midpoint of the right side and lower right hand corner, so these kinds of things. And then also the idea of like, well, there's square dancing where someone's actually doing the same thing. They're kind of calling out to the side, Allemande left, and around and around. They're telling all the dancers kind of what to do, and they're making these beautiful patterns on the floor, which feels like paintings. Okay, let me put those two things together. And it kind of came intuitively. With "Lay All Your Love on Me," this is I did a cover of an ABBA song. I don't even know if you guys know this band, ABBA, but it's a Swedish band. Okay, yeah. Mamma Mia. Anyway, it's they have a great song called "Lay All Your Love on Me," which is really kind of a super upbeat kind of disco vibe song. But I love listening for the, like, what's the seed of this song? And I said, the seed of the song is actually really quite sad. It says, like, don't go wasting your emotion, lay all your love on me. So he's like, there's a deep kind of tragedy in that. What if I made a new version, a cover of that song, but it amplifies that element of it rather than the kind of party, which is really just kind of an experiment, but out of deep love. It's like, I want to hear that thing. I'm lucky to get to work with a lot of different people and ensembles, and kind of finding inspiration everywhere. I think that's one of the things I like about music, is that you can have it relate to a lot of the things around you. It's all kind of, inspiration is everywhere if you just start to pay attention. It's like, that tree, moss. So it never, I think just remaining open, and trying to imagine something that you haven't heard before. Starting there. Right there. Mm-hmm. Mm. I think, well, the process is a little different depending on what kind of medium I'm working in. So for To the Hands, it was a very established choral ensemble called The Crossing, and string players from International Contemporary Ensemble. So I sort of knew these people and what they were capable of, and also what they enjoy doing, and I was really gearing it towards that. There was also kind of the assignment of writing something related to a piece by Buxtehude. So it was kind of using that material, starting with those ingredients, and making something that I found really compelling with that. Whereas with So Percussion, and I also wrote that piece kind of really by myself and then handed it over, sort of more traditional way. With So Percussion, this is a group of 4 guys in Brooklyn, although they live in New Jersey now, but who play percussion, which is kind of can be defined in many different ways. They're very creative, they're really collaborative, they're very generous with their time and encouraging, and we spent a lot of time together in a room trying things. So it was a lot of, we call spaghetti at the wall. Just let's try that. Like, what if we tried this? And they would say, oh, have you thought about this? Or have you tried this bowl? We have this one in our stash of bowls and flower pots. And I could develop the piece kind of slowly along the way. That was a piece called Narrow Sea. And then after I wrote a piece kind of for them in that way, we thought, what if we do something really, truly together where I'm not the composer, I'm just part of the band and we're writing these things together. So we spent 3 days in a recording studio, really with not very much material in hand. Said, well, look, let's just try and make something in a few days, really quickly, very collaboratively, where everyone has a creative voice in the process and everyone can bring their best selves to the table. And that was kind of something very different from anything I'd ever done before. I really love it. It's also a challenge to not to collaborate with people in that way. I don't know if you guys know the show Ted Lasso. Yeah, I love this show. I think about it a lot, actually. I think it has it's really related to being a musician of any kind, or especially as a composer, or just someone you walk into a room and he's like, how do I see everyone and bring the best out of everybody? That's kind of what he does. It's like, let me encourage everyone to talk to each other, and you just create a different energy in the room. So that was, I know, I think about that a lot with working with so percussion in that way. Mm-hmm. You had a question, yeah? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. Sibelius the robot does not know what I mean when I think that it's a big challenge because I work in Sibelius, which is a notation program that really kind of understands things in a very robotic way. It can take in certain parameters and spit them out in a certain way, but music doesn't really work like that. Sound doesn't work like that, and I want to. How do you, really thinking about how do you transfer the information in your brain for what you want to someone else? And it's usually a combination of things on paper, sort of this code of dots and lines, and that you see as music. But then also maybe I'll just write in some words of like it's sort of in between, or it's not quite. This is not. It doesn't have to be exact, or I'll sort of describe the technique of playing the bow. It's like it's not really a tremolo, but it's like a little, but it's uneven. And then the best is if I can be in the room with people and say, yes, and let's go a little further and kind of define it really quickly, which I think the oral tradition is really important in music. I mean, that's where a lot of music came from. No one wrote something down and said, this is how it goes. It's like, let's sing together and find something together, and then it's shaped like that, and then you kind of transfer that information over time to people. But I do love traditional notation because it can get a lot of information to someone really quickly with rhythm and pitch and meter, but all the in-between stuff. Like if I want someone to sing, it's like a very specific thing. I want you to glide down just a little bit, but not quite a half step, but maybe it's a half step sometimes, also while gliding the vowel from something open to something closed, but not too specifically. All that has to be said. But usually if you're in the room, you can just be like, and they get it. Anyway, it has a lot of implications with musical community and how we think about, whether you write something hyper-specific where all the information is there and then you're not in the room. I don't know. I think about what's the experience of the performer in that. Do they feel brought into the process, or it's just there's some questions in it. Yeah. These are really great questions, by the way. Thank you so much. It makes this easier to be up here. Mm-hmm. Mm. Hmm. That is such a deep and beautiful question. I think I'll say one thing. I did sort of decide early on, and I had to kind of be decisive about it. It's like, I'm just not going to feel the pressure to be what someone expects. You just can't do it. I think I'll probably make something better if I'm not too worried about that. Of course, it's always a little bit in there. I want to do something that feels honest and good and well crafted, and I've put the work into it. I think work is really important to me. But whether or not I've said something or said something original, just can't think about it. I think it's, have I said something that I'm excited about or I'm interested in, and is it healthy for the world? That's the really number one thing, is like, am I saying something that is, am I making my general surroundings, whether far or near, slightly better than they were or not worse? And trust that, trying to live my life or shape my life in a way that's geared towards something that I want, that'll filter into the music. But I think trying to do it so much, saying like, I must do something original that no one's done before. If that's interesting to you, I think it's important to ask why. I'm not saying you, I'm just saying one. But I think trying to do that really organically and naturally, and letting what you make in the world be a reflection of how you live in it and what you want the world to look like. Somewhere in there along the way, you may or may not make something that says something, and that's about all we can ask from our time here. Yeah. The short answer is no, I can't worry about it too much, but yeah. I can also play a little bit of music just to maybe just take a break from the talking. We can think, and then if we can do more questions after. Trying to think. I don't know what people have heard. If you want something, are there any requests for vocal or string or pop or film? I'll just say a little bit about what I do. I do still work as a violinist, and I sing with Roomful of Teeth occasionally, and I write music for choirs and for orchestras and string quartets. I really love writing for string quartets and singers and small groups. I'm not super interested in writing for orchestra, but it's a good challenge, and I'm lucky to do it. And then I've started writing a little bit more for film and collaborating with people in that way, working a little bit with pop musicians. I worked with Rosalia, who is a beautiful Spanish singer recently. Has an album coming out like any day now. So there's a kind of, in my computer is like a really wide variety of stuff that I could play. But yeah, there's a question. String quartet? Yeah. Let me see if I can play something new. I have an album called Orange, which has a lot on it, but there's some new things, which I would love to get to share. Just because I'm in a quiet mood, I'm going to play another slightly quiet quartet. But this is one, it's called Second Essay. It's part of three essays. It's really the second movement of a quartet. And it starts with this kind of crunch where you do overpressure with the bow on the strings. And then kind of all four players are doing that, and they kind of release it. So it's like this feeling of like chaos and tension and something that feels like this, and then like melting into the opposite of that, which I'm just really into. And I'll play it for you. You know what? It's too quiet. I'm going to play something more louder. I think it's just need to pick me up. I was like, that's just going to be so slow. Let's do the first essay, which is a little more exciting. This one I'll just tell you, I wrote in 2016. It was a wild time. Election was happening. I was reading these essays by a wonderful novelist named Marilyn Robinson, and I was actually listening to them. So you hear her with her lilting voice reading this essay, and I thought, what if I start a piece that feels like Marilyn Robinson reading an essay about politics in the United States? That's how I started. I wrote this in a lot of different locations, anyway, first essay. It's about 7 minutes long, 8 minutes. Thanks. I should just say who played. That was the Caledora Quartet. They're based in New York now, but that was actually from the premiere back in 2016. It's just a live performance. They're really amazing. Good friends of mine. And the other recording that you heard was the Ragazza Quartet, which is based in Holland. I was trying to play the Attacco recording, but it wasn't working. Anyway, I'm very incredibly lucky to get to work with some wonderful musicians, some of whom I know really well and have gotten to play with, so I were able to kind of communicate easily, but I know how fortunate I am. Yeah. Mm. Mm. Yeah, I really liked music theory class in college. I don't think that I think there are many different ways to listen to and understand and think about and talk about music, and I think there's a lot of really good discussions happening now in curriculums about how we talk about music theory and what we focus on. I'm very aware that I sort of tend to use the building blocks of kind of like those really traditional chord progressions in Western music, almost like, rather than like, this is really great and that's why I'm using it, it's like they're little weird memories that I kind of play with, almost like a painted object. So I like to kind of, and that piece really does that a lot, like condense this like chord progression into like a texture. So instead of it being like, here are the chords going to other chords, it's like, here's a memory of that chord progression. I'm going to squish it so it's 5 times faster than you're normally hearing it. So you have this weird sense of it, like the memory of that kind of Western circle of fifths, but squashed into a little texture that then you can kind of paint with, which kind of, this piece was really about language, kind of the breakdown of language and how we're all kind of talking over each other, especially in 2016, and how do you make sense of that? And anyway, but I also love, I don't think when I'm writing, I'm not thinking, oh, this is the chord that I'm going to go to because of any kind of sort of theoretical basis. But I think there's a lot of my own history with music, of taking a lot of classes and kind of playing with a lot with these chord progressions that I draw on when I write music. Kind of out of love. It's like, oh, this is something that I loved so much and still do as a person. I just love this chord going to this chord. And how do I make something how do I paint with that? Yeah, that's one answer to your question. Mm-hmm. Of the very back. Hmm. I didn't think about groove for a really long time, and I really avoided it. I was like, there's going to be no rhythm, like no dance in my music. But I also realized that I love dance, and I love playing for dance classes. And so groove, meter, pattern, regularity is a huge part of dance. It's also a huge part of most music around the world, and a huge part of like my own body. So I'm letting that kind of come in every so often. I can also get a sense of when I feel like, oh, I don't want to live in that particular groove for so long, but I do like it. Like, I think we just love things where you can like jump into a regular pattern and then like disrupting it. Then you can like play with that. And I think I really enjoy doing that. Yeah, I don't think that I have the best groove, but I do like working in meter. There's a question right here. I really like thinking of language and all the complexities of what we do when we speak. I think speaking is like wildly, wildly complex and difficult, and it's extraordinary that we're all able to do it. And singing is like this kind of distillation of that. They sort of take this part of speech and extend it. And I really like thinking of, if we extend it, if it's like my way of speaking, very kind of Southern East Coast American, I speak a little bit in the back of my throat. And if I just extended that a little bit and then kind of capitalized on that, or just not capitalized, but like harness this little tiny thing that's happening naturally in my throat and extending that and then making a different color out of it, I'm kind of interested in it. With the this feeling of like putting sort of like a energy behind something. It's like you're just saying, like, I just have to say that thing. I don't know, it's a really interesting energy. And then I write a lot of music that doesn't have text. And so when you don't have text, you can kind of explore a lot of those colors. I'm very interested in the kind of pressed phonation of, if you say, which is related to a lot of different kinds of throat singing, Mongolian, Tuvan. You hear it in a lot of people's speaking voices, this kind of pressed phonation, which, if done healthily, is just a beautiful, interesting color, and is also really a part of how we speak and how we communicate. Breath is a huge part of how we communicate. The way that it can be exasperation, it can be excitement, it can be exhaustion, pause, and anyway, I think it comes from spoken language and the things that we do every day. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm. I think, thank you. Yeah, the idea of music as a gift, which I mentioned earlier, which I'll say it comes from someone 15 years ago, probably, I guess, gave me a book by Anne Lamott called Bird by Bird, and it's a book of advice for writers, not of music, but just about writing. And one of the things she says in it, which really changed my life, I think my friend knew that I needed this book at the time because I wasn't writing music, but I was like, I think I want to. And she said, write as a gift for someone. Think of someone that you love, and that's why you're writing this story or this novel, not to make something important that you're looking at from the top down and it's important, it's an important thing. It's like, no, this is for this person. And so one of the first pieces I ever finished was for my grad recital, my violin recital, for violin, piano, and singer. And I thought of my younger sister, who was at the time 18. She was just going through a lot. And so this is for her. And it was the first time it helped me finish it and kind of gave me a direction that I needed. And it also takes the pressure off of something being like, kind of that question you were asking about, like, it's important to say something. Do you think about that? It's like, it's more important that it may mean something to one person or a handful of people than it says something broadly. So yeah, I wrote that for my sister. I wrote a piece for thinking about my dad recently. He's alive, but he was kind of that. Sometimes I'll really think of the performer. I wrote a piece for Catherine recently, really thinking about, we don't know each other very well, but we got to speak a few times. I watched, and listened to what I could of her voice, and thinking about her, that was the direction for the piece for me. So that'll be tomorrow. It's a brand new piece. Very excited about it. Yeah. We have, yes. Oh, we have, 5 minutes. I think we have like 3 minutes. Oh, yes. Mhm. Mm. Mm. Yeah, well, definitely this second one, I definitely just feel like I need to do what I should do. I don't feel like I need to certainly lift up classical music. I think I deeply love a lot of music from the classical tradition. I think I love a lot of notated music and kind of the way that works. And I would love for more people to know that, but it's not something that I'm trying to evangelize. I think the best way that I can share that love is to continue making what I make, which sort of sometimes just says, hey, here's something interesting. Like, what's another way of thinking about it? As for genre, I would love to, I drift between a lot of different styles and genres and working with different people, and I really, really love that. I do know that my background is straight up classical violin. That's where I came from. It's what I will always know the best and feel the most secure with, but as a person, I'm just curious about a lot of things. I also understand why we give names to things. It helps us contextualize something and give a category. It says, how do I understand that really quickly? It's like, let me put it in this category for a moment and then listen to it. It generally doesn't help our listening, but I'm sympathetic to those whose job it is to describe music, journalists and marketing. I get why they do that. I think it's a really hard job. I wish that we didn't live in a world that categorized things. I think, things like Spotify, where these are the genres and things have to be geared toward a particular thing, are very harmful for broad music making. And the Grammys or awards like that, they're very, I can't put too much emphasis on awards at all. don't think that they're important. I was really, really glad to see someone like John Baptiste in the classical composition category. I think that was really helpful and healthy and good for that. Ultimately, all we can do is make the music that is meaningful to us and meaningful to those around us and feels honest and authentic, and without trying to put it into a category. But that's a complicated thing, and I'm definitely not the right person to answer it. And I know it is 12:30, so I don't want to keep anyone longer than you're supposed to, because you have lots of things to do today. But I don't know if I'm the person to wrap this up. Or okay. Thank you for having me. Thanks. I'm going to unhook this. Is this okay?